Champion is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
That's the motto. Throw back with no chaser, with no trouble. Popping that moe, baby, let's make some bubbles. Puffing on that gelato. Wanna be seeing double. Gotta do what you gotta.
It's Asterix in front here. O'Sullivan's got it going to go back to back in the derby. And Jonathan Parks and Asterix beats Low Creek. Sort of state, just put his bib in front, short of the line, he out-toughed her. Bellatrix back out of the pack. Bellatrix Black has got there. It's on the bubbles. He's percolating down to the line on the bubbles.
Great scenes coming in from Ellerslie on Saturday, where of course we enjoyed New Zealand Derby Day. It did cause a bit of an upset, obviously, with a long shot getting up to score. Certainly not what the punters had in mind. With Michael Guerin out at the New Zealand Bloodstock Yearling Sales for the week, we've called in Luke Radich to join me this morning. And Luke, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
And we've got lots to get through from a massive Derby Day there at Ellerslie on Saturday.
Yeah, always love the Derby, Emily. It's a race that goes back even longer than the Melbourne Cup. Didn't stop for World War I or World War II, didn't stop for COVID, still going. And I thought it was a derby this year with even more talking points than usual, with a $1.35 favourite at the close. That absolutely blew my mind. Certainly the shortest priced derby favourite of my lifetime, and you might need to be going back to the days of straight back jockeys and whalebone whips to find a shorter price favourite if there ever has been.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yep, George Simon said similar on the day there before the start, and of course the victory ended up going to Asterix for Lance O'Sullivan and Andrew Scott. Let's relive the moment now.
Homeward bound in the Vodafone New Zealand Derby, and it's Soldier Boy the leader. Coming after it now on the outside is White Noise, and here comes down the outside Regal Lion and Asterix. La Creek, she's 4 lengths off them at the 200. Asterix burst to the lead in the Derby. La Creek's 2 lengths away, battling on Regal Lion. It's Asterix in front here. O'Sullivan Scott are going to go back to back in the Derby, and Jonathan Parks and Asterix beats La Creek third over as they went across with Regal Lion, then followed by
Well, last year, maybe you expected to win, not this year.
Well, look, we had a little bit of confidence behind the scene, and you know, you've got to stay. And we had a hunch it was going to be run at a bit of a tempo, and we knew our horse was so genetically strongly bred to run the trip, and he'd come in with pretty light prep. And you know, we've seen it in the past with other horses. If fresh legs do count, and they've got to stay. And look, that's one thing he did today.
You talk about him being a stayer. He's so untapped. Is he a horse who might be a cups horse, not just in this country?
Maybe, because when he's 4 and 5, he's incredibly immature, and that's the reason we sort of brought him on late, because his maturity didn't allow us to come on early. And there's so much improvement in the horse physically and mentally and experience and all the above. So look, his mother's a half sister to 2 horses that were placed in Melbourne Cup, so he's got incredibly good strong breeding genes. So he is from those sort of families.
Whenever horses win the New Zealand Derby these days, we ask the obvious question: are they heading to Sydney for another Derby? What's the answer?
Yeah, I'd imagine, look, he's got to come first. And, Sam, when he bought him, the memo was Melbourne, New Zealand Derby, Melbourne Cup, and that's and he's had the dream and he's stuck to it, and that's what he's going to do. So whether the Sydney Derby comes along, he's got to come first. And today would have taken a lot out of him because he's so immature. And, look, he'll tell the story over the next couple of days. But, Sam's got a dream and he'll stick to it, and the horse will come first.
Must be a strange experience, Scotty, because you've won a derby with a lot less pressure heading into it. I know you've still got to work them and look after them, but this time last year all the talk was Rocket Spade. Not many were talking Asterix.
Yeah, but that's the way you like it when you sort of go into a race like this. And, surprising enough, Lance and myself were quite nervous. Like, we believed deep down that he was probably the best stayer in the race, and probably one of the more, potentially one of the best horses in the race. But he just hadn't had his opportunity to show it, or got out to a trip genetically or fit enough to get to. So, look, we were incredibly hopeful, but we didn't have a great deal of confidence.
When did Parksy become your Derby rider?
Look, he took a bit of talking into it. Bevan, we rung him as the horses went across the line in the Guineas, and we said to Bevan, look, this horse will stay, and you can look around for other better rides, but we don't believe you'll get a better one. Other than the two favourites, and they stuck with us, which was good, because the ride was the best ride in the race. It was the coolest, and that's how we said to ride him, just forget the race, that jockeys will paddock, they'll take off, and like they did, and they got along a bit, and it just helped them a lot to sort of find the line. So the ride was certainly an aid.
Last year, great footage of a pre-planned party for Rocket Spade. This year, the party might be a touch more spontaneous.
I'd imagine, but look, we'll be having a few somewhere tonight, and it'll be a huge night, and hopefully I haven't got the same headache as last year.
Oh, good on them. Big well done to the Andrew Scott and Lance O'Sullivan team for what they were able to achieve. Spoke to Lance O'Sullivan this morning, and they have confirmed that they will bypass the Australian Derby with the aim of getting him to some big races in the spring, hopefully, as we heard there in Melbourne. So interesting there, because such an exciting up-and-comer. But I thought, Luke, a number of other points. Obviously, Lance O'Sullivan wore these colours aboard Popsy in 1993 to win, and actually in an equal time, which is quite freaky, so the equal fourth fastest time in history in that race. So, yes, some really interesting talking points there, and what a lovely horse he is.
He is a lovely horse. He's kind of a throwback horse. He could be a horse straight out of the pages of the 1950s, the golden era of New Zealand stayers. He really is a bit of a throwback. He's a lovely, lovely animal. It's a big call to bypass the Australian Derby. I admire their ambition going for the Melbourne Cup. It's the race that anyone who believes in a bit of history would love to win more than anything else. Where will he find his spot in the long term? It's hard to say, because it's very easy to be a prisoner of the moment, to get carried away. I think he's obviously got it all before him. He's obviously got a good future. The last four Derby winners have a pretty horrible record post the Derby. I think, if I've counted correctly, 37 starts for 2 wins in quite minor races.
Wow.
Now, I don't think he'll fall into that category, but it's hard. We saw it with a horse like Sherwood Forest, who won the Derby, beating some high-quality horses, and did it in a good time, and he just couldn't measure up in Australia. There's no bigger jump than going from 3-year-olds racing in, say, an AJC Derby, given the Australian stayers are no great shakes, nothing at all to be afraid of there. Instead, you come back at 4 and you race against the influx of the Europeans.
Yeah.
That's a big call, and it's tough. I really hope he can do it. And the good thing is we don't know what his ceiling is, because he might.
Exactly, and to have done it in such a short space of time. What was it, a Tauranga Maiden he won last start into a New Zealand Derby, and success. We're going to go back to the start and have a look at the whole race replay from the Derby, and importantly, you want to keep your eyes on Asterix early, because he stumbles out of the barriers and does actually end up being lucky there. Oof. Yeah, lucky to stay on his feet. We heard that in the post-race interview from Jonathan Parks. He said, I'm lucky to have even got to the finish after that little incident. But
this is the key point of the race,
yeah,
isn't it?
it's not just about Asterix, is it? He's out the back minding his own business. It's Vinny here aboard the short-priced favourite in Le Creek.
Yeah, and I saw a fair bit of criticism on social media, and you take that with a grain of salt, obviously, of Vinny's ride. I honestly don't know that he could have done very much differently. Look, at this point, you could say, okay, he could kick up and hold the lead. For me, that's purely a hindsight call, because at that moment, if you're on La Creek, nobody is screaming, kick up, hold the lead, don't give up the lead at all costs, or anything like that. You would just expect, you ease, you get the trail, and you would expect at some point to be able to work away from the rails at a decent time, and it just didn't happen. He always had a horse to his outside, or in fact 2 horses to his outside at most points. I honestly don't know what he could have done differently, really. And when he did work off the rails, he did it really well. But the interesting thing here is, there's the mid-race move, the pressure goes on. Suddenly La Creek is 3 back the inside rather than in the trail. And you find about a couple of 100 metres on from this point, or maybe a little bit more, when Asterix starts to work forward, suddenly there's a point in the race where Asterix is level with La Creek, or only about a length behind her, having done absolutely no work. And La Creek has done work, it's been stop-start. She was massive. I love that filly. She reminds me of Tidal Light, and for somebody who grew up in the mid-80s, loving racing, that is very high praise. I can't wait to see what they do with her in the spring. I think if she were mine, I'd be seduced by the $7.5 million of the Golden Eagle, which is a very, very winnable $7.5 million race. The traditional path for a horse like La Creek would be to go to the Caulfield Cup, Cox Plate or something like that, or a big mares race, but a simple bit of numbers would tell you that it's better to have even a 20-to-1 chance in a $7.5 million race than a $3 favourite in a $1 million race, just on an implied value perspective. At that point, maybe Vinny could have gone to the inside of Asterix, but Asterix was starting to run in a bit. That probably would have been trouble, and he still wouldn't have won the race anyway. So I've talked too much already, Emily, and I apologise, but La Creek, a horse I'm in love with. Asterix, I love his upside. Regal Lion keeps trucking. There's a bit of Jon Snow about him for me too, and I understand he will go to Australia.
Yep, spoke to Andrew Forsman this morning. So Regal Lion will head to Sydney, and the other two contenders, they're White Noise and Privileged Sun. Still making decisions with regards to them, but good to see those OTI colours across the ditch, and maybe a final derby for Murray Baker before his retirement on the 1st of May. Well, involved in the ownership of Asterix is Smart Great Batch, and we had Michael Guerin on track to have a little chat with him post-race.
Well, you've won a derby. How does that feel?
Wow, amazing, Michael. Thank you. Sorry about the favourite, but it was a great race. I mean, you know, you were always hopeful. I think I've had another horse in the Derby, Gifted Lad, a few years ago with Natalie and Trent, and you know, this year I got offered a percentage in a horse with the Hawke's Bay boys, Sam Kelt and Andrew Scott, great lads. I lived there for a long time. Great families, they're here today. So, you know, that's what racing's about, and we're very lucky with the situation and the current climate that we've been here to actually enjoy it. So very, very happy, and, you know, Lance and Scotty and their team down at Matamata. We were down there at Tuesday. We managed to get up at 3:35 in the morning to watch them train, last training, and great people. They work hard, great industry, so yeah.
There's a rumour that didn't stop till 1 o'clock in the morning the next morning.
Well, we did manage to meet some of the other staff that stayed up a bit later than the trainers, so, you know, because they're professionals. So, and of course, Sam and I had to, you know, sort of talk and
Do the right
have a
thing.
bit of fun. So, yeah, no, it was great. You know, we're really happy.
How long have you been, Mark, and interested in horse racing? Is this something that dates back to the cricketing days when you're not batting and therefore there's nothing to do on the sidelines?
It's going to be a sad story. I bought a share of a racehorse in India on top of a hotel in Rajkot in 1988 with Chris Kugelheim, Richard Hadley. He had 2 shares, so he lost twice as much money as I did. All the cricket guys, I think we called it Flying Willow, and that was the start of it with the Scowans. And
Any joy, Flying Willow?
he went around the track, and we spoke to his trainer, and he said, Mark, he trains really hard, but on a match day he's not as good as he should be. So, but you know, that's what it's about, and we had some fun, and so that's been, you know, a long time, I suppose.
I think a lot of your mates, particularly here in New Zealand, but across the Tasman, when they find out about this, they'll get a kick out of that, and they'll need a kick out of it, because a couple of guys you played cricket against, of course you played against Warney, and you were just after the Rod Marsh era, and those 2 guys passing in the last 24 hours must be remarkable for someone who's part of that cricketing brotherhood.
Yeah, it's been a sad day for cricket, really. You know, great players, good people, and changed the game. You know, Marshy in the 70s with World Series cricket. I was a wicketkeeper, believe it or not, as big as I am as a young kid, and I inspired to be a wicketkeeper via him. Played against Warney, great character, huge competitor, and very sad. And obviously, you know, their families are grieving at the moment, and you know, we hope they're fine, and you know, they'll have great memories, so that'll help them in the future.
And maybe you and some of the boys, and of course your partner, will raise a glass tonight among other glasses that are being raised.
Probably, Mick. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great to catch up with Mark Greatbatch there with Michael Guerin on track on Saturday. And of course, you do get an opportunity to buy the full sister to Asterix through the New Zealand Bloodstock Yearling Sales. Will be going under the banner of Curramore as lot 434. And as Luke very correctly pointed out, your final opportunity to buy a Tavistock this year. We're going to move you along to Simon Alexander now, who of course co-trains with partner Katrina, and they obviously had Le Creek as the second.
Well, lots to be proud of, Simon, but it must have a little bit of a feeling about maybe a derby that got away.
I think so. I think as the race panned out, probably the number one draw ended up being the worst place to be.
Everybody wanted to be in front of you and potentially in the lead with a no-pace race, and it just ended up ugly for Vinny, and there's nothing he could do about it.
No, I think they kept going forward, kept, and probably horses with, that were long in the market were going forward. So probably about the 700 or 800 were in a position where you just didn't want to be.
You must be immensely proud of what she's achieved. Do you have any gut instinct about maybe going a bonus race in the Oaks, or is she almost certain to go to the paddock?
Look, I'd say she's almost certain to go to the paddock. It's never been the plan to carry on. As you can see, she's a light frame filly that's going to furnish into a lovely mare, and I think she's got enough ability to be competitive in Australia in the spring. So I think that we'll just pull up stumps and take this one on the chin and move on maybe.
Yeah, and I think that'll do her the world of good. Heading to the paddock, she'll come back bigger and better than ever. You've got to feel for them, because when you watch that race time and time again, she was cherry ripe. She had every reason to sort of run midfield, battling fourth or fifth, but the acceleration she showed late, she's got such a big heart.
Yeah, she's got it all. A beautiful filly and a wonderful training effort, of course, we spoke about by the trainers of the winner. But equally, I think, by Simon and Katrina Alexander. I know a lot of people know the backstory here with the last basically 10 years of their lives, but in case you don't, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Yeah, Katrina Alexander was a fabulous trainer back 15, 20 years ago, had Honor Bay be the stable star, and just one of the best strike rate trainers in the country, an absolute top level horse person. And then she was out of the game for a few years to nurse and enjoy the remaining time with her terminally ill son. And it was the words of her son that inspired her to come back to training and live a life less ordinary than the one she was doing, working in a bank at the time she was away. She's a fabulous addition back to the training ranks, along with Simon. Of course, I don't want to sell Simon short. And it would have been really the last chapter in a legitimate Hollywood movie type script if they'd won the Derby there. It still is, just the fact that they've got a filly of that quality. And I think she'll be, I hope the best still to come for La Creek. I agree, she'll be a beautiful mare in the spring.
Yeah, she will. I think you're right. Hopefully she can regain that form in the spring, and we'll see her back at her brilliant best. We're going to move on to the undercard there at Ellerslie, because there was some real treats on the programme. We kick things off with the King's Plate, which was of course taken out by Sword of State.
Black, then came Achieve. Further back, Big If as they make the corner and they swing for home. 350 to go. Mustang Valley still in front here. Made the bend awkwardly, but leads a length. Coming after it, here's Glory Bound down the outside. Miss Ella battling away with Bellon Rouge. Bellatrix Black switching to the inside and Outfit on the inside. It's still Mustang Valley. Glory Bound. Achieve running on him. Bellatrix back out of the pack. Bellatrix Black has got there. Bellatrix Black stuns.
Well, apologies for that. That was, of course, the Sunline Vase, which was taken out by Bellatrix Black in a pretty impressive performance. Another real shock of the afternoon. There are a number of those throughout that card at Ellerslie. Bellatrix Black, for me, fits a very similar profile to Asterix, a horse on the up who really has that good staying ability and was able to put that to good effect.
Absolutely, she's got a pedigree oozing with stamina. I went back, you look on the female side of her family, and you go back to a horse like Rocket Racer, the infamous Rocket Racer, who won a Perth Cup by 9 lengths when he was doped up with elephant juice. But that's another story if you don't know it. She will, of course, go to the Oaks, and I think she's going to be a huge chance in the Oaks, really. That was a strong win from a horse who looks like she'll be better in a few weeks' time than she was going to be yesterday. So, really good win. Glory Bound was okay. Maybe I was expecting too much of her, but I didn't think she was quite as good as I was expecting. This is the Oaks market, and I know we're going to get to self-obsession. $2.20 for me is a little bit on the short side.
God, I love her. I just think she's
She'll run all day, won't she?
And she showed it in, we'll watch it shortly, the Lowland Stakes, but her versatility. She was able to take a sit the other day, she can lead, she's got the speed to put herself there. Achieves an interesting one that came into the mix for me off that run in the Sunline, and then of course a number of others in there. Had a quick chat with Jamie Richards about his contenders. Ballon Rouge, from what he was going to say, from what he was saying, was going to have a little bit of a freshen up. I'll just bring that up for you now. Tick her over for a few days and see how she goes. Outfit's going to have a freshen, and Invincible will head to the paddock, so that's an insight into those runners. But yeah, an upset it was on the day, wasn't it, with Mustang Valley, even a horse I kind of ruled out of contention really, then put herself back in contention. Might just come down to runs in transit when it comes to the
I
Oaks.
think so. I think we saw from that race there's not much between those fillies, and I was interested too in one of the horses really running on, ran the fastest sectionals in the race, was La Ville, but not in that Oaks market I see, but I think she is in the Australian Oaks market at around 40 or 50 to 1, so she might be worth a look, because the stable don't mind travelling a horse to Australia, that's for sure.
No, she caught the eye, didn't she? Closing it off really nicely there in the Sunline Vase. Well, we just mentioned Self-Obsession, and of course she took out the Lowland Stakes earlier in the week at Hawke's Bay in a very impressive performance. She's been taking it all before her. She's the New Zealand Bloodstock leading filly of the year at the moment, and that continues off the back of this win.
One Dream, One Soul, Flash Mary the outside, Self-Obsession now put into the clear, Illicit Miss over on the outside, and then Aspen, Colorado. One Dream, One Soul, they haven't got it yet. On the outside, Self-Obsession starting to come quickly now, and then Flash Mary, she knows how to win. She's a great winning filly, and Self-Obsession wins the Lowland. One Dream, One Soul, Flash Mary, Aspen.
Well, the ears pricked on the line. She does it again, and as I just said, Self-Obsession, is leading the Filly of the Year series, obviously sponsored by New Zealand Bloodstock, and continues on her winning ways. She's doing it all, and she's actually an orphan foal, Luke, so she's overcome plenty in her short life, and she's as big as an elephant just about, but she pricks the ears and gets herself home in front. Looking forward to the Oaks there in a couple of weeks' time. Well, leaving the fillies and getting you back to the boys, or the boys and the girls, you could say. This time, we definitely will take in the King's Plate. This is Sort of State.
Is New York Jazz from Tavere, well back with them is Manrico, Monaco, and last of all, one more time, Homeward Bound, 300 to go, Babylon Berlin being cuddled up, Sort of State coming out after it. It's the battle we all anticipated. Iconic Stars in third spot, 4 lengths away, Mega Bourbon. Babylon Berlin's not done with yet. It's coming after her, Sort of State, and then we followed in behind those by Iconic Star. Sort of State just put his bib in front, short of the line. He out-toughed her. But
he's not.
I really like this win. This was a great win by Sort of State, who really just dug it in deep and was able to get up and score. I thought he had to really fight to beat Babylon Berlin, and he showed that he could do that, and what was a pretty good time as well.
Oh, really good time. Not that far off the track record, and it's a long-standing track record of Diamond Lover as well, so they were running times there at Ellerslie. We sort of know where he sits now, don't we? He could win any sprint race in New Zealand. But he's been over to Australia, and I thought Brendan Lindsay, after Sort of State's previous win, was refreshingly honest, just saying he basically didn't measure up over there. I'd like to think he's closer to those better Australian 3-year-old sprinters than he showed over there. But look, on New Zealand shores anyway, he can just continue to kick goals like he did there. Babylon Berlin, again, what can you say about her? Just completely honest. She basically runs to the same level every single time. She's the punter's friend, she does her thing. And sometimes she gets beaten if another horse is good enough on the day. Most of the time she doesn't. Really love to own her. She's a great filly.
Yeah, she does. She runs very consistently, doesn't she? Well, let's have a little chat about what Leith Innes thought around his victory aboard Sort of State.
He's not massive, but he's powerful.
Yeah, look, he's not very big, Mick, like you say, but he rides really big when you're on him. He's got a massive stride, and he's so strong as well.
Not often a race pans out quite as perfectly as that barrier 9 becomes the 1-1.
Yeah, it didn't look like that was going to happen on paper, but hey, to the horse's credit, he's put himself there and he's gone to sleep, you know.
Not often you get a catch ride on a sprinter like him in this country. Most of our good sprinters these days tend to be mares, so it must be nice to ride a sprinting colt. We don't have that many of them floating around.
Yeah, it was probably quite good that Opie was suspended as well, Mick, but no, it was really good.
Horse like him would. If he came back here, if they kept him in training, and Brendan won't tell me if they will or not, but you reckon he'd win a railway?
Hey, on today's effort, running 108, I reckon definitely can.
Well, he loves being home, Brendan, and it must be awfully tempting to take him back to Australia. I know it's not a decision for today.
Not a decision for today, Michael. I think we've just got to enjoy a bloody tough win. She's a blooming good filly, that filly, and I thought at the 300 we had it under control. At the 200 I started to worry. At the 100 it was like, oh my God. But good ride, Lethal. Drew 9. Winners are grinners. It's just great for the horse.
Next year, a lot of the good mares from this year may not be floating around. Is there any chance he stays in training and wins a Railway or wins a Telegraph or wins them both? Or do you and Henry and the team have your eyes on retiring him to the farm?
Look, I think at the moment we thought about retiring him, but we're going to talk to David Ellis. Obviously, he bought the horse. We've got the majority share of him, but we've got partners in it, so we need to respect their opinion and talk about it tomorrow rather than today when the champagne's flowing.
He's an exciting horse. He's a horse who brings schnitzel blood to New Zealand. We don't have a lot of that floating around, so it's a nice outcross from some of the things you've got going on at Cambridge Stud at the moment.
Oh, look, the schnitzel out on the Costa Lago mare, he's perfect for next year because New Zealand breeders have shown when we bought Hello Usain out, the support. We sold that horse in the space of a month. They're looking for sprinting blood. We all know that our studs in New Zealand can't afford to go and pay 20 or 30 million for an Australian sprinter. Is that horse worth that? No, he's not, but he is a schnitzel. He had him at Costa Lago. He's a Group 1 winner. He's a champion 2-year-old. He deserves his place on the roster and he will get support.
Brendan, this is on Monday morning. The sales will be just around the corner. How are you feeling about a challenging sale? Because it's a difficult time for us all, but a few rays of sunshine this week, people coming back from Australia. How do you feel about your draft and your sale?
I think our draft's really good. I think our team's done a good job. I mean, everybody's going to say the same thing, I guess. But the Aussies coming out, I think it's a big thing. There's I think there's 16 or 18 of them come over. It's just lifted the whole mood of the sales. Australian buyers are trying to buy horses from us. We're making it harder because the border's been closed. It's not anybody's fault, but it's harder for them. Will they support us? I'm absolutely convinced they will, and I think we're going to be surprised. I think we're all going to have a very good sale.
It'd be remiss of us not to ask about the big girl. No decision made yet on a future date for Probabeel?
Not yet. We've got until September to find a date for her when she meets her first boyfriend.
There'll be a few knocking.
There'll be a few knocking, and look, Joe and I just enjoy having her home in one piece. And we don't even want to think about it because we just want her to be happy and in the paddock. At the moment she's still box rest, and then we'll sit down and think about it, but look, she can go to just about any stallion, so I don't know what we'll do. I think, what a decision to make.
And I think they're still working out where sort of state will head next when it comes to his racing preparation. That was the word from the stable this morning. Let's move you along to the Mufasa Stakes. That was a really exciting race as well, wasn't it? On the bubbles, and I Wish I Win going head to head.
Dara sweating on a run and behind the leaders. Then came Bonnie Lass getting out into the clear. Followed then by I Wish I Win, and battling away also Follow Your Dreams at the 200. On the bubbles made the lead. I Wish I Win is warming up, so is Bonnie Lass, and battling away and behind them then Bella Luce. It's on the bubbles in front. Coming after it is I Wish I Win from Bonnie Lass. It's on the bubbles. He's percolating down to the line. On the bubbles got there. Second over. I Wish I Win. Third over. Bonnie Lass.
Jonathan, must be good to be back at Ellerslie and riding good horses.
Yeah, for sure. It's always a pleasure coming up and getting on some nice mounts, and I always enjoy it.
You had to break away from riding. Did it take you a while to get your eye back in and get your timing back in, because you seem to be there now?
Yeah, not too bad. I think I just get on the right horses, sort of, that helps, and it's good to be back.
He's a good horse. He's obviously had a tough run on the Karaka Million, but he still wanted to be there today. He looked like he was in for the fight. Yeah,
for sure. It was a gutsy effort. He's carried 59, which is probably 3 more kilos than the next horse. So it's been a good effort. He had a nice barrier draw today, which made things pretty easy for him. He got a nice bit of cover, and top of the straight, I had a handful of horse, and he's bound to kick on really well.
It looked very muddling for that grade of horse at 1,400 metres. Are you confident he'll cop a mile in the Livin Classic?
Yeah, I think if he gets a cosy trip, if he was to get a nice draw and he gets a cosy enough run, I think he can see out a mile in his own age group. I don't see why not, as long as he gets a cosy enough run, yeah.
Racing here again next Sunday, and of course some busy racing coming up down your way, Awapuni and Trentham. What sort of weight are you available to ride at these days, Jonathan? What are you able to achieve?
Just at the moment, it's taken me a while to get my weight down, but sort of around the 56 area at the moment, and I'll keep on trying to sort of narrow it down a little bit more as I keep on riding.
A really big well done to Jonathan Parks, who had just a stellar day there on Saturday, obviously riding on the bubbles to success and, of course, taking out the Group 1 Vodafone New Zealand Derby as well aboard Asterix. He has a wonderful relationship with On the Bubbles, and they reunited there. And again, On the Bubbles beating I Wish I Win, but gosh, it was a muddling run at the back of the field. On the Bubbles really avoided all of that trouble.
He did, not unlike Jonathan's 10 out of 10 ride on him in the Karaka Million going back a wee while. Great run by the second horse, I Wish I Win, probably just as good as the winner, frankly, and Bonnie Lass as well, who had an interrupted run. I mean, in the race, On the Bubbles was the only one you wanted to be on. But going forward, as we think about the Live-In Classic primarily, who do you think you want to be on?
Gosh, I mean, On the Bubbles has beaten I Wish I Win each time, and we've seen I Wish I Win in a 2,000 guineas, so it becomes a very interesting and complicated event, doesn't it? But you'd have to go with On the Bubbles, who has beaten I Wish I Win each time.
Too, isn't he? He just does everything right. Very, very impressed with Bonnie Lass. All the first three home there. They've, not unlike the previous race where the first two streeted the rest, the first three have shown they were clearly superior there. So there we go. Imperatrice $3 On the Bubbles for Bonnie Lass. No,
it's an excellent field, isn't it?
It's
really
a good
come up
race.
as
It's a good race. Sometimes
race.
sometimes this race sort of falls in between and doesn't get the best fields every year. But it's a gun race this year. At that price, I'd be tempted to look at I Wish I Win at $9, but.
He obviously does bring that winning form at Trentham 2 starts ago, doesn't he? He's third up now in his preparation.
Yeah, in fairness, the form out of that race hasn't been great, but I thought he went to another level there yesterday. I thought it was the best run of his life, even though he was beaten.
Having said that, though, I guess On the Bubbles was so good in the Karaka Million with the torrid run that he had. He probably didn't have any reason to run as close as he did, but he still stuck on okay. He's just hard a horse, I think, for punters because of what he does at the training track and what he does at the trials. I think he sort of puts the doubters on what he can do, and then he just saves it for race day.
You don't want to watch his trials, do you? Actually, Probabile was a bit like that too. I remember watching an abysmal trial by her one day, somewhere in Australia, might have been Geelong, and then she came out and won a Group 1 a couple of weeks later. So you've got to be careful assessing the trials form, but we know enough now with On the Bubbles to know don't be put off if he goes average at a trial.
Yeah, take him on his race day form, that's the way, isn't it? So Live-In Classic obviously moved times throughout that racing calendar and seems to have hit a real sweet spot with connections within the racing industry, with it coming up as such a good rich field for this year. Let's get you along to the Nathan's Memorial, and this was a bounce back to form for Swords Drawn.
Macedo, followed by Camino Ricoso. Further back, Lincoln King as they head for home. Out wide, Spirit of Baz, Super Said. Then Swords Drawn and Tiago Caliburn and Starry Beale. At the 250, Segundo tackled by Spine Tingle. 2 lengths away, Lincoln King is warming up. Out the wide, here comes Swords Drawn out after them strongly as well. And through the centre, Lincoln King. Swords Drawn out wide, Spine Tingle. Lincoln King coming at the pair as they go towards the line. Whoa, gee, that's close.
Well, Tiger, you're into the Auckland Cup on Swords Drawn, and he's going to be a chance on that.
Yes. When I got on him, they gave me opportunity down the Awapuni, but the track was too wet for him, and the fitness way also wasn't really suits him. But just today, he performed huge.
Is he a hard horse to ride because he looks like a horse who needs to be saved up and time your run?
Yes. Like Sean told me, if I push hard and early, he can be over race. So just sit nicely, quietly. The drone helps too, and then cruising nicely on the way, and then little bit off the bit around the 600 meter. But I keep working on, and then as soon as I got the big sight, he just runs on really well.
With the 2 big wins today, one of your better days at Ellerslie must be very satisfying.
Oh yes, I can't believe this. Normally we can't have this super day, so I really appreciate people giving me that opportunity.
And great stuff there from Taiki Yanagita, who of course only just joined the senior riding ranks, but has made a flying start to that career with those 2 victories on Saturday. Of course, riding Bellatrix Black to success as well on the day in the Sunline Vase, a standout day for him. Swords drawn, a real bounce back to form, and I guess that puts punters back, puts them back in the mix when it comes to the Auckland Cup in, what will it be, 7 or 8 days' time?
Yeah, those horses, I look at that race and I think those horses largely are much of a muchness, and I don't say that in a derogatory way, but they're just at a very similar level, and a lot of it turns into who gets the best run on the day. So it's very hard to say out of this race who's the best Auckland Cup prospect. I mean, right out the back in the green colours, Harry Kane is getting home late, but he looks like he's looking for 4 miles rather than 2. And I do quite like the run of Starry Beale. I did just watch it past the post, and Starry Beale took an eternity to pull up. He's really hit the line well in the Go Racing colours there. So out of this race, he might be the one I'd like most for the Auckland Cup. But
Lincoln King surprised me. I thought he'd be too dour off the back of a Wellington Cup to be able to put in a run like that over the 2-2, but he's really just
really honest
back.
horse. Really honest horse. And I think this market is right, because basically there are 3 possibilities I see in this race. I look at it as though if Concert Hall produces the same level at 2 miles as she has done over middle distances, then she wins. If she doesn't, then you could say, well, if Sound produces his Melbourne form from the spring, then he wins. If neither of those 2 horses can do that, then it's wide open. I have to say, I hate the fact that the Auckland Cup has set weights and penalties now. We've done so much tinkering with our major races that sometimes you wonder if they are actually the same race that they always have been. But I'd love to see this race go back to being a true handicap at some point. Hate the set weights and penalties. Anyway, I won't go on about that. But anyway, the horse for me out of that race would be Starry Beale for the Auckland Cup. How about yourself?
Yep, I like Lincoln King. I think
Sure.
he can maintain that winning form from obviously the Wellington Cup, and I think once they get that confidence-giving win, they can be on the up, and that might result in a Quinella for the Stephen Marsh stable again in the staying race. We don't have to wait long to see the Auckland Cup. We're going to get you to a break here on Weigh In. On the back of that, we get you to Wingatui before a jump across the ditch.
Lately I've gotten to you. You got my head stuck in this crazy loop.
Today's Weigh-In is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
You're back with us on Weigh In, and it's now time to head down to Wingatui. It was the undercard to the Derby meeting out of Ellerslie on Saturday, and we start our look at race replays with the NZB Air Freight Stakes, which was won by Reputabel.
Getting to the outside behind these, no bouquet going for home. Rocker Fundita led for home and led by 3. Reputabel giving chase. Irish Red up the centre, and then Zarkat, Shameless Tart to the outside. Reputabel hits the lead from Rocker Fundita. Irish Red, Shameless Tart, Burgee, but Reputabel and Tina Kominiagi burst away with 100 metres to go. Coming away from Irish Red, just maybe Rattling home, but Reputabel is absolutely romped in. She won it by 5 on Irish Red.
Well, a real rising star in the 3-year-old ranks is Reputabel, who's by pins and seems to have just turned the corner since that New Year period, and obviously heads to the NZB Listed Insurance Stakes at the mile. Keen to see this horse stepping up in distance again.
Well, she's really thrashed in there. She's a 3/4 to a very good horse called Stickpin, and that was a super convincing win. I want to give a bit of a rap for Tina Kominiagi, who's having the best season of her career so far. She's won over $1 million in stakes, but I think I'm right in saying that's her first stakes win of the season. So to win $1 million riding the South Island without winning a major race is really quite some achievement. I really like the way she rides, gets nice and low and aerodynamic on the horse. Speaking of that race at Riccarton, I assume Just Maybe will be going there too, the 3rd horse. Really hit the line strongly, so I think look to be a horse that will be suited to the extra distance and the wider open spaces, but still they'll all need to find a few lengths to get close to Reputabel.
Well, we've seen a wonderful series in the South Island, and it was wrapped up by the Southern Mile final, and it was won by Henley.
Colossal, feeling the power, they're lining up, it's so easy, exchange right down the outside. Henley and feeling the power, Henley just in front, Henley will get there for Sophie Price. Henley to win the ODT Southern Mile final.
Well, Henley's the progeny of Rock and Pop and just been racing superbly this series, Luke, and good to see the well-deserved Southern Mile final going to Henley. And I think it's been enjoyed by racing participants down there.
Yeah, he got the run. He deserved that win, actually, Henley. And Sophie Price as well, the trainer, really does a good job with a small team down there. He got the lovely run and got the win. There were some other good runs in the race. Of course, the third horse did a great job after being 3 wide the trip. So it might have been one of those races where you run it a few times and just whoever gets the best run gets the win. But that's not to diminish the winning effort. Good performance. Second horse was also a good run. A bit peculiar, actually, because Henley went past him and put a length or a length and a half on him, and then right on the line he just about got him back again. So
good stuff. And also a special mention to Sire War Decree, who had his first winner there at the Wingatui meeting. That was Turf War. So congrats to the connections of Turf War and also, of course, War Decree. Well, now across the Tasman, and we kick things off with the Group 2 Blamey Stakes, and that was won by New Zealand bred and Inspirational Girl.
Pondus and Banker's Choice in the running. 400 metres to go, and it's Mr. Brightside about to let go by 3/4 of a length. Corner Pocket. Zaki needs an out, then Inspirational Girl and Luna Fox. Mr. Brightside, 250 metres to go. The sprint on. There's a run now for Zaki, about to use it. Zaki explodes through. Inspirational Girl late. Zaki, 100 metres to go. 3/4. Inspirational Girl's coming at him. It's going to be close. She got up. Inspirational Girl nailed Zaki. Photo third. Corner Pocket, Mr.
Well, into the All-Star Mile after beating Zaki there, who was obviously the favourite on the day. Inspirational Girl doing a great job. That's just her third start in 15 months, Luke, I understand. So a good training effort. Was purchased by John Chalmers from the draft of Jameson Park. And Jameson Park, they offer a half by US Navy flag lot 116. So a good little connection there. And of course, Banker's Choice, a former New Zealand galloper, was a black booker for a lot of people, I think, from that Blamey Stakes, and Mr. Brightside obviously as well, running a great race.
Yeah, some really good racing at Flemington, and we'll look forward even more so, I guess, to next week. I just didn't want to get the show out of the way without mentioning, of course, Levante's racing in the Newmarket next weekend, so we've got a lot to look forward to at Flemington. And some other really good races on the card there, the Australian Cup too. But I wouldn't be going off Zaki for his next start too. I thought that was a run he'll definitely improve from.
Yeah, he will. And just while we're on the subject of Australia, there's a number of other winners that I wanted to touch on, and super important, obviously, with the sales upcoming. And of course, in no particular order, Bermudez, who's by Tavistock, came through Inglewood's 2018 New Zealand Bloodstock Book 1 draft, put in a really good winning performance. Anavisto on the day took out the Group 3 Francis Tressady, and with a dominant fresh win purchased by Phil Cataldo out of the Tony Pike stable after winning a trial at Teteco by Reliable Man out of a Tavistock mare in Avisto. Greg Tomlinson, who bred the horse, still in the ownership. And I'm just looking down my page here. You've also got Yonce, of course, who's a Prassier mare, who's now unbeaten in 5 starts out of a Zabeel mare in Ziva. That was passed in for $30,000 from Woburn Farm and was later purchased by Ross McCarroll, and then, of course, headed across the ditch to Aussie Keir. And Bellucci Babe, got to mention that as well, Little Avondale stud, who won in Sydney, daughter of Per and Canto, who had those Little Avondale stud colours flying high, trained by Bjorn Baker, winner of 6 of 18. Great stuff for Little Avondale. It was syndicated along with Rocket Horse and Kiki Star to help improve those Little Avondale broodmare ranks. And just before we get to a mashup of the Group 1s there in Australia, of course, really sad news for the Emily and David Brown team, with Elephant being injured, and X-rays scans revealed a bone chip. So he is unfortunately out of the All-Star Mile. And I know a lot of connections wondering if Converge now jumps into the All-Star Mile off that victory in the Randwick Guineas. Well, speaking of Group 1 racing in Australia, let's have a little look at all the highlights.
Converge to the outside, Halal tucked away on the inside, and 3 further back to Anamo. Military Expert leads the way from Converge, who strides up on the outside. Then came Halal, 2 off to Anamo. Converge has made the move at the 200 and going strongly. Converge 2 in front from Anamo and Halal. Converge a length clear from Anamo. Converge kept going. Anamo will make one last lunge, but Converge goes on to win the Randwick Guineas by a half length to Anamo. Laws of Indices and Private Eye starting the run from well back. It's Forbidden Love being cuddled at the 300 metres. Lighthouses flat out sticking on in second, and they're well clear from the rest. Private Eye's coming with a good run down the outside. It's Forbidden Love in front, holding Lighthouse inside the 150. Private Eye third, but Forbidden Love's going great guns on the quick back up, and she wins another Group 1 today. Forbidden Love by 2 lengths to Lighthouse. By 2 lengths on Nature Strip. And already the 2 great sprinters have broken clear of the rest. Eduardo going great guns at the 300 metres. Now McDonald starts to push the button on Nature Strip. 3/4 of a length away. Eduardo's got plenty of gas in the tank. And Eddie's still running at the 100. Nature Strip's got the job to get there. Shelby 66 is running into second. Charging home. Eduardo in front. Clings on. Eduardo just...
I'm a sucker for you.
They were followed by Ranch Hand back to the inside. Hitotsu runs on and Forgot You's coming through too. Lightsaber in front, led by a length. Bonza Perla is flashing down the outside with Hitotsu. It's Lightsaber just in front. The filly Bonza Perla's coming and Hitotsu. Lightsaber 100 to go. Hitotsu grinding it down. Lightsaber joined by Hitotsu. They're running off the track. Hitotsu just in front. Hitotsu a special win. Won by a neck.
Yeah. Say the word and I'll go anywhere blindly. I'm a sucker for you. Yeah. Any road you take, you know that you'll find me. I'm a sucker for all the subliminal things no one knows about you.
Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Tiger Lily moved to the city, she just turned 21. And then I said, here's my number, hit me up if you're needing anyone. And then I could be anyone, 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 anyone for you. Anyone, 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 anyone. I could love you, I could be anything you want of me. And in the darkness of the night, baby, let me be your light. I could love you, I could be anything you want of me. And in the darkness of the night, baby, let me be your light, be your light, be your light.
And as you would have seen there, that is of course one cool dude who raced as he's a cool dude, 21 years old, raced by Ralph Manning originally, 45 starts for 7 wins and 8 placings, enjoying a lovely life off the track, reached the top level as an eventer with Danielle Wheeler and now teaching Kendra Rogers the ropes. Big thanks to NZTBA for sending in that video and pictures and for the work that they do with the off the track thoroughbreds. Luke, we'll get to you before we have a sales chat because you've got a little topic that you'd like to raise.
Well, yeah, thank you for giving me 60 seconds to be a grumpy old man briefly. I just wanted to talk about the comments in the TAB online form guide for Australian racing. They're terrible. It's the shop window for the New Zealand punter nowadays, and we don't seem to realise that because we get these abominable computer-generated, I assume, because no human could be this stupid, comments in the TAB form guide, like when Very Elegant resumes in the Apollo Stakes 2 weeks ago, she's described as a handy galloper down in class, or Nature Strip consistent gelding, or Hitotsu resuming, the form comment refers to the fact that he won a maiden at Donald fresh up previously. Just asinine stuff. As I say, it's the shop window, and you might say it's a minor thing, but I think it matters. I think it matters in 2 ways. It's a little bit insulting to your punters, and it also feeds into the perception, right or wrong, that those in control don't understand punting and the triggers for punting. So please, do better than just having computer-generated comment bank nonsense in the Australian form guides.
Well, New Zealand bloodstock yearling sales have already kicked off. Day 1 is underway. Michael Guerin caught up with Mark Chittick yesterday to find out his thoughts on the sale.
Yeah, thanks, Em. Day before the sale here at Karaka. Really nice field of the place. Weather's great, which always helps when you're trying to sell horses. Lots of expats coming in from Australia, a few who probably didn't think they could make it here. And the book getting a really couple of big upgrades, as you spoke with Luke earlier about some of those races at Ellerslie. The Derby winner having a full sister here for Curramore later on. Unbelievably, the lot before that, late on Tuesday night, also for Curramore, is a half to On the Bubble. So 2 upgrades there for back-to-back lots coming up on Tuesday afternoon. So good feel to the place, lots of buyers here, lots of domestic buyers, lots of good feel about syndication and what that's going to do for the domestic market. But one man who knows a lot more about Karaka sales and topping Karaka sales is Mark Chittick from Waikato Stud. Mark, what are you expecting? Because this time last year we thought this was all challenging. Now it's almost all normal.
Yeah, we're certainly getting used to it, Michael, and like I hope everybody is getting used to it. I mean, we've been coming here for some, I don't know what it is, 30 or 40 years now, and so certainly the change in the last couple of years has been a bit unusual for us. But you're right. I mean, there's just this insatiable appetite for horses throughout Australasia and certainly Australia, and the way the New Zealand horses are competing. The Great Days racing here at Ellerslie yesterday, and once again fantastic results in Australia, just as recent as yesterday, and that spread across sires and different horses and the way they've got there and different trainers and that sort of thing. So the New Zealand horse seriously is competing just at the best level. I think we're the 4th sale in Australasia this year, and the 3 sales so far in Australia have just been phenomenal, and there's just an incredible lineup of horses here. I've got around a little bit this year, and the word is there's just a lovely bunch here. So I really do hope that these horses find great, really good homes, and we get a bit of money for them.
At the top of almost everybody's list who's got a list where they can afford horses of that quality is Mawanga's brother. He looks a good-looking horse.
Yeah, he certainly is. It's probably a little bit easier to say. We're at a little bit of a different time of the year than when Moanga sold, but this horse is every bit of as good as Moanga, if not sort of better. And he's certainly got everything on the board there. So it's really nice when you've got a full brother following in footsteps like that. So yeah, he's part of a really nice draft, and he's a horse that we're proud of.
Your horse salesman hat aside, and excuse the pun, the hat joke, what are you expecting this week? Are we going to have a strong sale?
Look, I really hope we do. The horses are here. The sire power in New Zealand has been really impressive in the last 12 months. We got through last year's sale under similar circumstances pretty well. Things that have been happening since there are all good. So I really hope we do, because it's certainly the source for a great racehorse.
And in case you missed it, you can watch the sales via the Sky pop-up at 263 or on Freeview on Channel 200. All of that information obviously available at www.nzb.co.nz. Day 1's underway. Looking forward to the next few days. Michael Guerin has a preview and a review show there throughout the week. That's it from us here on Way, and a big thank you to Luke, for joining us this week.
Thank you, Emily. Get on Spanish mission for the Australian Cup next week. Sevens is great value.
There you go. Heard it here first. We're tipping winners too. That's it from us here on Weigh In.